I have some trouble understanding the dimension of time.
Oh, yes. Well, you're not alone.
And, and maybe you can help.
Well, what is it you feel you don't understand about the idea? You do understand that time is your creation, yes? No?
Maybe not.
Oh, all right. Well, you know that it is.
Okay.
Space-time is a vibration in consciousness that gives you a frame of reference for having what you call a physical experience. Without the vibrational frame of reference called space-time, you could not have an experience that you would call physical. So it's created by a level of your consciousness and imposed on your consciousness kind of like a structure or a filter through which you will experience yourself as a physical being, because without that, you can't experience yourself as physical. So space-time is created for the purpose of actually experiencing process in creation, because without space-time, everything is created instantaneously. You see?
Yes.
So that you can experience the concept of process, you have to have a framework self-imposed upon your consciousness called space-time. It's like putting a helmet over your head and looking through a goggle that creates a certain look. Because without that, you can't have that look. You can't have that viewpoint. So time is an arbitrary illusion created by your consciousness in order to see yourself in a certain way, in order to experience yourself in a certain way. And that certain way mostly involves the idea of the ability to experience process. That things are in the act of being created, as opposed to simply instantaneously being, which is what it is on higher levels. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think to some extent, yes, but that takes me to the next question.
Yeah,
so maybe perhaps I can understand it better.
Yes.
That is, how does time work in your level of consciousness? And
Well,
how
it works
is it
very
different?
well, thank you.
And how is it different?
It is not so structured. We have the understanding now in our experience that time for us does not have to be created in such a structured way. We use it as a tool when it is necessary. For instance, when we are speaking with a civilization like your own, we understand that we must lock into your time frequency, your sense of time, in order to communicate with you in a timely fashion. But in our own reality, we hardly ever really experience it that way. Sometimes we don't experience it linearly at all. Our consciousness shifts up and down what you would call the timeline very frequently, very freely, very fluidly, so that we can be not only where we wish to, but when we wish to, in our focus, in our consciousness. Does that make sense?
I think it does. It's hard for me to still grasp it,
I know.
but I think...
I know. Well, let's look at it this way. I will give you an example that you have all experienced on your own planet. You have a saying on your planet that time flies when you're having fun. When you're doing something you love to do, you recognize that you don't really experience as much passage of time. When you are doing something you're very involved in, that you're very passionate about, you might look up and say, well, it feels like I've been doing that for, I don't know, half an hour. But then you look up and say, well, maybe actually 5 hours has passed. And you go, where did the time go? But you see, it's not that time went anywhere. It's not that you ignored the passage of time. It's that when you experience that kind of focus and actually only feel like 1/2 hour has passed, you have actually only aged 1/2 hour. The rest of the world may have aged 5 hours, and you may plug back into their time frame so you can keep up with them at the 5 hour mark, so you won't be out of step with anyone, so you can still agree with them that it's 5 o'clock. But if you really only viscerally and physically experienced half an hour during that moment, that's all the time you actually created in your reality. 1/2 hour, and that's all you've aged. That's how fluid and flexible time is, and that's why it's important to always live in the moment, live in the present, and do what you love to do, because when you do that, you don't create as much time, and when you don't create as much time, you age less.
Wow.
That's how it works.
Thank you, Bashar.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you.